Welcome back to the Elevate Podcast, the show for behavioral health executives focused on growth, innovation, and sustainable census. Today, we're joined by Clint Mally. He's the VP of Content of Recover.com, one of the leading platforms when it comes to connecting individuals and families with trusted addiction and mental health treatment providers. Clint has spent years studying what actually drives trust, visibility, and conversions in behavioral health. In today's episode, Clint is going to break down a framework that's called reverse content marketing, a four-step approach that starts at the bottom of the funnel with conversion tracking and message alignment and builds backwards towards authority, trust, and scalability of your facility. So if you're a CEO, if you're a founder, a marketing leader who's looking to reduce your CPA, improve the quality of leads, and grow your census in a predictable fashion, this conversation is for you. Clint, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Gary. Pleasure to be here.
Fantastic. First and foremost, maybe just give the audience today a little bit background on yourself, your current role, previous role, and how did you end up here where you are today?
Yeah, so I started out in behavioral health marketing, working for a treatment center. I worked for Sandstone Care for a number of years. We were able to grow it from, around 12 locations to over 20 locations, spanning into new states, across a full continuum of care, working with teens and young adults and adults. So in Colorado, Virginia, Maryland, and Illinois. From there, I went to work for an agency that specifically worked with behavioral health companies. And so I got to know different treatment centers outside of the teen space and learn what makes them tick and how they work and the nuances with each of those. And then from there, I was brought aboard recovery.com, where I'm very happy and I have a great team where we specialize in creating content both for professionals in the behavioral health space, but also for clients or for therapists to educate them, to inform them, and hopefully to help more people find treatment if they need it.
Fantastic. Clint, it's no secret. I've known you for a couple of years and I've always been a fan. You're always at the forefront of initiatives, always studying best practices and very data driven. So I've been looking forward to today's conversation. I think maybe a lot of folks doesn't maybe familiar with the today's headline. Could you break down for us what is reverse content marketing and how does that apply to treatment facilities?
Yeah, so maybe I can also turn this question to you for a second. When you think about content marketing, or when you think about what most people think about when it comes to content marketing, what are those top of mind things? What do you think of?
Yeah, well, when I ask the question very often, what I'm seeing is, we're outsourcing that to a marketing agency. They kind of do what they want to do. It's a lot of AI generated content, not necessarily aligned with the tone of the voice of the facility. Now, the conversations we've had in the past, and when I attended the recovery.com marketing summit last, and you spoke on your 16 checklist for conversion rate optimization, I know we're very well aligned. So when I'm thinking content is how do you position the facility in an authentic fashion? How do you position them as a thought leader? How is it aligned with the unique differentiators? How do you establish trust, credibility, enhance visibility, and all the different components so that folks, when before reaching out and before even hitting the back button potentially of that landing page or website, they have a good feeling about that next step in the path towards recovery, basically.
Yeah, and I think you're not far off. So content we know is words, it's pictures, it's video, it's sound, it's all of those things. And when most people think about content marketing, the first thing they think about is social media or they think about blog posts.
Mm,
So it's usually the last thing that they want to do because their whole goal when you open a center is to be able to get admissions, to be able to help people, to get people in the door, to be able to get people through treatment. So it's often an afterthought for treatment centers. The reverse content marketing strategy really starts with the end in mind. It says, what if we created content for the very, very bottom of the funnel where we're trying to get everybody to
mm,
anyways, and we perfected that and we made sure it was locked in, it was tight, there was no leaks. And then we broadened our reach of content outside of that, right? So that's it in a nutshell. And the goal is, after I walk people through these 4 steps, that there's something that they'd be able to take away to be able to apply to their treatment center today that they can say,
mm,
oh, that's something we're missing. That's a
mm,
step that we skipped.
mm,
And if they do that, if they're able to start at the bottom, they start at the very end in mind,
mm.
then they're going to be able to hopefully convert more folks, help more folks, and then ultimately reach more folks. So that's kind
Love
of the
it.
gist.
Love it. Chapter one in my book, begin with the end in mind. Whatever you do, tie that up with your why, and you're going a long way, right? So you mentioned begin with the end in mind. How do you do that? How does tracking come into play when it comes to content and the strategy?
Yeah, so I think the first part is to think about setting, if we're talking about the very end in mind, we have to think about your admissions team. And the admissions team is fundamental in everything that you do, right? So we want to make sure that that is airtight. So a part of that is making sure that your call answer percentage is really
Mm,
high. That for the amount of people who call, you answer all of
mm,
them,
mm,
that you answer them quickly, or if
mm,
they submit a form for a verification of benefits or VOB, that you respond within the next 5 minutes. So
mm,
no matter what, if your marketing and your content is amazing, but that stuff isn't locked in and you don't have that, it's going to not matter, right? You also need to have a lead scoring system. I do
mm.
3. I know you do like a 5, a numerical,
Yep.
very value of 5, but basically a way to be able to say everybody who calls, do they fit into one of these 3? 3 being the highest for me, meaning that they can pay for the treatment, that
Mhm,
they need what we have, right? So
mm,
they're a clinical fit and they're also a demographic fit, so that
mm.
they fit within the clientele that we serve, whether that's teens or adults or the
Yes.
acuity, those kinds of things. So that's like basic ground level foundational stuff. You've got to do
Mm,
that.
mm.
But then to your other point,
Just
setting up,
just to
go ahead.
wrap that up, what are the 2 other categories with the 3-point framework that you say they have? You have the fully qualified,
Yeah,
viable opportunity, whatever you wanna name it. What's the 2 others?
yeah. So there's payment eligibility. They can pay
Mhm,
for treatment, clinical fit, right?
mhm,
If they match what they need is they match what you actually do.
mhm.
Then third is demographic fit, right?
Yes.
So a 3 has all 3 of those in common. A 2
Mm,
would only have 2 of those in common, and a
mm,
1 would have 1 or 0 of those in common.
mm.
And
Great.
so it's real simple for admissions teams that way.
Yeah.
That way, they've got a lot on their plate. If you can break it down into 3 steps, it also removes kind of that middle ground when you think about, if you score things from a 1 through 5, there's a
Mm,
little bit too much nuance there. What is a 3? Is a 3 good, right? Is that not good? It's really clear that
mm.
way.
It's
That
true.
way
It's true.
that way you can look at your leads and the people who are calling and say, "What are we missing?" Well, they're missing
Mm,
one of
mm.
these 3 things.
Yeah. You're preaching to the choir there. I love that. And it's basically aligned with any other vertical. If you think about it, you got leads, you got MQLs, you got SQLs, and any other vertical. Essentially, that's what we're translating into from a behavioral healthcare standpoint. Maybe on our end, the argument for adding the 2 extra layers is, there can be an influx in Medicaid government-funded agency programs, and sometimes that's the geo-targeting aspect. It could be a campaign keyword element, and you wanna be able to measure those endpoints, but at the end of the day, I always think about my mentor, when at Google, he was like he always said KISS, right? Keep it simple, stupid, right? It was just like, otherwise, adoption is not in place, and when you're talking to big emissions team, you wanna make sure they fall in those 3 categories because that's where the money is essentially, so I
Yep.
love it. I love it. What about essentially what we're saying is that we're implementing tracking. We're starting with the end goal in mind. We're producing content and we are trying to understand what content is translating into specific admissions opportunities.
Yeah,
If that,
and I think the first piece of content, if we really think about it, is gonna
Mhm.
be your admissions team's call flow.
Mm,
You need to have a flow that's written by humans to be able to interact. It doesn't have to be a script like telemarketers, but it does need to be a piece of content that everyone on your admissions team uses to be
mm,
able to interact with folks. I can't tell you how many times I've called a center and they pick up the phone and they say, "This is Ashley." And they say nothing, and they wait for the other person to be able to say, "Okay, I'm Clint. I'm
Yeah.
looking for a detox for alcohol," and they really get the impetus. So a call flow
Can I
insurance.
verify your insurance?
Yeah, exactly. So a call flow makes it really simple to be able to say, what you say when you answer, what are the initial questions that you need to ask them,
Mm,
how do you make sure that you don't waste somebody's time when it
mm,
comes to you don't want to have them tell you their whole life story if they're actually not a clinical fit, or
mm,
if they can't afford treatment, or if there's another center that would be a better fit. That's not a good use of either one's time. So a call flow is going to
mm.
help that. And so that's the
Oh, yeah.
first one you should write. And if you write nothing else and you get your call flow down, then you're going to make sure that
Yeah.
people who call are set up. The second piece of content, and I know this is something you're passionate because you're writing an article for recovery.com, spoiler alert about this, is the insurance verification, or your VOB form, right?
Yes.
And going back to what you said about keep it simple, stupid, it needs to have only the information necessary for
Mm,
you to be able to check and to verify somebody else's insurance.
mm.
There's tons of VOB forms that have everything under the sun. You need to know what insurance they have, their policy number, their first and last name, and their date of birth, and then keep it moving, right?
Yeah.
And that way you're going to get more form submissions.
Mm,
Also, lastly, you need to have a thank you page, right? A key thing I see a lot of treatment centers miss is they don't have a thank you page. The problem with this is that it's harder for conversion tracking. But if you send everybody to a custom thank you page that you can only get to when the form is submitted,
yeah.
then you can verify, okay, this is somebody who has submitted their form. I know that
Mm.
they're looking for treatment and have insurance, that kind of thing.
Exactly.
Um,
And what I really appreciate also is like, and I know we'll speak about, you know, maybe we can segue into that, but you know, take away all the marketing, the strategy, and the messaging. At the end of the day, it's really about the emotional connection. And anybody who's been in recovery or is in recovery or considering recovery know that it's a tremendous emotional roller coaster. So that first step of filling out that form, and then you're uncertain on whether that information was received or not, almost makes you like freak out, right? Imagine that you're contemplating, you're fighting with the devil about whether you should take this step in your journey in your life or not, and then a conversion rate element and your form and the questions they ask at that point is really mission critical and can also detract people from taking that tip and then essentially cost lives. So that's golden nuggets. Thanks for pointing that out.
what one more thing about that? Sorry, you made me remember when I worked at a treatment center. When you submitted a verification of benefits form and it sent you to a thank you page, on that thank you page was a video. And the video says what to expect now, right? And it walks you through, okay, an admissions person is going to see this. We're going to have an insurance advocate look up your insurance. We're going to call you. We're going to ask you a questionnaire, make sure that the person who's considering treatment is present there. And then we're going to see if you're a clinical fit. And then we're going to make a treatment recommendation and give you a clear expectation of cost before you do anything else, right?
Mm,
And then imagine the different experience that way, so that they know the next time you call exactly what's going to happen, instead of as what you mentioned, oh my God, what happens next? Will I get accepted? Will I not? When will they
mhm,
call? Letting them know. So along with the video, having some FAQs on that thank you page is so helpful. And then also breaking it down into steps, right? So like,
yes.
well, step one, submit your verification. Step two, we'll verify your insurance, get transparent idea of cost. Step three, we'll set up a questionnaire to be able to determine if you're a clinical fit, and then talk about next steps, right?
Yes.
One, two, and three, super helpful. And the
Sure.
person's already set up. Also on that thank you page, guess what else you could add? You can have social proof, right? You can have
Oh yeah.
people who have successfully completed treatment, or Google reviews, things like that. We'll
Mm,
talk about that more later, but
mm,
social proof needs to be in these places because they're
mm,
still not sure. They're not, even though they've submitted a verification of benefits, they've probably done this with other treatment centers too. Another reason why you need to be quick and speedy when you get a form submission within the next 5 minutes. So
mm.
those are just some things you can add
Oh yeah.
to that form. Thank you.
Amen. I hope everybody take his note because there's a lot to unpack there. Just the emotional aspects, setting the right expectations, timeline, what's going to happen next, when are we going to get back to you? The trust elements, which is huge. I mean, comparative with many other industries, you talk about bias, remorse, or you talk about the lack of advancing to the next stage. And here, there's the implications of the financial barriers with potential insurance limitations, out of pocket payments. There is, am I at the right state of my life? I got to tell my spouse, children, mother, whoever it is, I got to arrange it with my job, or I got to figure out how I pay for these bills. There is so many different, it's just like one of the most complex conversion cycles ever. So really considering the delicate stage of the prospective patient, you want to, give them as much comfort and support as possible in that next step. And I've seen your campaigns from the past, and that conversion rate difference from the average. What I see is a couple of percent and upwards, double digit. If you do it well, that's just a make it or break it on your return on an investment, or return on ad spend if it was paid media efforts. Speaking of that, how does that, because we're talking about a thank you landing page, etc. Like when we're talking about content creation, thinking with the end goal in mind, what are some of the elements that should be included? I know with recover.com, you have the concept of a location page for a profile, ensuring that it goes to a specific conversion rate optimized location page, and it's not necessarily the homepage that is built for multiple reasons and not necessarily straight to the point. What other inclusions would you consider when you're crafting a page and crafting content for that, for those pages?
Yeah, location page is a real soapbox of mine. It's the most underutilized page on most
Yeah.
people's website. It's the first page that most people will find when they're looking for your center. It's the one that's connected to your Google business profile, usually the first place that people see when they're looking for treatment, especially on their phone. And so the key thing when it comes to a location page, which is where people are going to find you, is that you have to build trust. And trust,
Mm,
luckily, has an equation. It's empathy plus authority equals trust. If you have empathy and authority, then somebody will trust you. Right.
mm,
But let's unpack what that actually means. What does empathy mean when somebody's looking for treatment?
mm,
It's answering the question, does this person or does this treatment center understand what I'm going through? They want to know if you actually understand what they're going.
mm, mm,
And so there's a few ways you can do that. Do you clearly list your levels of care? Do you clearly list the types of people that you help?
mm,
Meaning like the conditions that you treat or the acuity that you serve or the demographics, whether it's teens or young adults or adults. Um, do you use the right target key phrase for that
mm,
page? What I mean is like sometimes people will create a location page and call it adolescent residential treatment, which is like what clinical folks call it, instead of
mm,
teen rehab, which is what
mm.
humans on the internet are using.
Yes.
And then the second part of that trust equation, so again, trust is empathy plus authority. So the second part of that is authority. So you have to answer the question, can they help me? Right? They
Mm,
want to know, can this location help me? And so there's a few really quick, simple things you can do with that. You can
mm,
make sure that your location and your address are firmly displayed so that somebody knows exactly how close you are. You
mhm,
can make sure that you're super clear about payment or insurance information. Most
mhm,
people, a lot of treatment centers are scared to put any prices on their website or their location pages, or they're scared to list the amount of insurances and they just say learn more or call us, right? When a key thing that somebody has is, are you close enough to me and can I pay for this? They don't want to call you to be able to see that. Imagine like you had to get a massage and in order to understand how much it cost, you had to call them. That
mm,
sucks. Nobody wants that, right?
mm.
Um,
Yeah.
the other the other thing is like pictures. So
Mm,
names of the people who are delivering care. So pictures of your clinicians where they're smiling, their names, their credentials, their expertise.
mm,
Most treatment centers don't like doing that because many treatment centers will burn through clinicians. It's a high turnover position and they don't like updating their website. But I don't want to go to a treatment center unless I can see the faces and expertise and credentials of the people who are going to be delivering care.
amen.
Um, And then the last part is like when we think about this trust, can they help me? Is the pathos, ethos, and logos side of it. When I was a teacher, we taught this as the three types of persuasion: pathos being feeling or emotional persuasion,
Mhm.
ethos being credibility persuasion, and then logos being facts, figures, numbers, statistics, and data persuasion.
Mm,
Most people have a different level of what percentage is more important to them. Some people
mhm,
care more about data, some people care more about emotions, some
mm,
people care more about credibility.
mm.
And if you'd like, we can unpack a little bit about what each of those would look like on a
Would love
location.
to. Yeah, because I think, I mean, you are basically getting at those aspects that is very often hidden from our facilities, or they entrust the marketing agency with these aspects. Then what I feel is very often, I won't say a level of desperation, but a necessity to broaden and say, we cover most major insurances, right? Because they just don't have enough leads, which often translates to the wrong content being put out there, not being specific about who do we cater to, who
Yeah.
can we help, what is our area of specialization, and who are we a good fit for. So it's kind of like a vicious cycle. If it's not done messaging, if it's not aligned with the tracking, then they go broad, and then your admissions team essentially is experiencing call overflow. They're talking a lot of time qualifying. And I know I'm unpacking it a lot here, but essentially it's also then they start cutting corners. Because if you have a lot of phone calls, you just think about it, and 1 out of 10 is unqualified. They don't have the intent. They don't have, there's a financial barrier. There's a location or traveling distance, they're not within proximity, all those different factors. Like if there's 90% of calls that have that approach, then you're very quickly going to hear that, can I verify your insurance? Because they know they have three more in the call queue, or the boss is like, hey, we're missing calls, and they outsourcing it. So, getting the foundation, starting with the end goal in mind, it's just, it trickles all the way down to the admissions and the script. Because if the calls are qualified, then they can take the time to, I call it an elevator pitch or positioning statement. And thank you so much for calling, building report, positioning. Like typically people who come to XYC recovery, they come to us when they're experiencing XYC. They're at this stage, and these are the considerations that they're having or challenges. Am I right on any of these? And how can I, you know, now, oh shit, I called the right place and these understand me. And furthermore, if you have the insurances qualified, or position in the VOB and the landing page, guess what? You're gonna get extra leads because people are looking for in network with XYC insurance that location instead of calling, and maybe they accept the insurance or not, right? So I think there's a transformation occurring in the industry. The more smart marketers that are taking this reverse content marketing approach, essentially they're gonna get a bigger bang for the buck, but only if they consider the entire admissions funnel. So just wanted to add to that. So speaking of the ethos, pathos, can you expand on like those emotional layers? What is it that triggers those aspects? What kind of, can you give some examples on each?
Yeah. So let's talk about pathos, ethos, and logos. Pathos, we'll start there. It's your emotional or your feeling. You need to make sure that people feel like you understand where they're coming from and that you can help them.
Mm,
How do you do that? The best way is to be able to have social proof. The best type of social proof is going to be testimonial videos.
mm,
People who have successfully been through your treatment center and have completed treatment and have good things to say.
mm,
And you these don't have to be high production. These don't have to be complicated. These have to have really 7 questions that you can ask somebody after they've come through treatment, right? What's your first name and what are you in recovery from?
mhm,
When did you realize that it was a problem?
mhm,
What was the turning point that let you know that you needed help? What was your expectation of treatment like? And was it different than your expectations?
mm,
What did you learn within treatment and how did that change your life? What is your life like now post treatment?
mm,
And what would you tell somebody on the fence about getting treatment? Those
That's powerful.
7 questions, I'm patting myself on the back. I hope it was 7, but those 7 questions really tell the story of somebody really briefly. And you can do it and you should edit this video down to about 2 minutes. It's okay if it's choppy or if it's filmed on your phone, as long as people can hear it. And
Mhm.
sometimes that even comes across as more authentic.
Mhm.
But people want to hear their life story come out of someone else's mouth.
Yeah.
I'll never forget when I was interviewing one alumni for a treatment center, and the way that he got into treatment was that's what he told me is he said, I heard my story come out of somebody else's mouth on this video. And it made me want to go and to get treatment because when you're before recovery, you feel tragically unique. You feel like
Yes.
nobody's ever had it as bad as you are. Nobody's ever like struggled as much as you have. But
Mhm.
we hear somebody else who's able to say that, it makes you feel like you're not alone. It makes you feel
Amen.
like there's hope. And
Yeah.
so that pathos part is like a key way. Like
Yeah.
one step down from that is going to be your Google reviews. And that's cool because it's a third party verified thing.
Mhm.
That's why we include all of that stuff on a recovery.com profile. It's really important. People want to be able to
Mm.
see that. What doesn't work for social proof when it comes to emotional credibility is being able to like just write a random quote and put their initials. Doesn't help. There's no third party verification. There's no
Lord.
emotion that's going to be connected to that. But you see that a lot, right?
Who do they think they're kidding, right? I'm always wondering, is this a new company or why do they do that? Is this a beta page? So you're spot on. I think I just want to, make sure that the listeners is capturing the elements you're saying. The process of going into recovery is, very often folks feel alone. They're the only person in the world thinking the unique scenario, thinking that these triggers, behaviors, patterns, there's something wrong with them, right? So hearing that from another voice is almost like that law of familiarity, that resonating, right? People gravitate towards people they can resonate with. And it's almost like, that tribe building. So getting those testimonials as like, that's a foundation. If you can't do that, you have a core problem in your facility. And you're then putting that on the landing page. It's just a 180-degree change in conversion rates when done. So just want to make sure everybody picks up because this is gold, Clint.
Yeah. The key is like the thing you should be thinking about is you want to flood people's view with social proof.
Mm,
If it feels like it's an overwhelming amount of social proof, that's a
you're
good
getting
thing,
there.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's like with leadership, right? When you're tired of saying it, that's when you got to say it about 5, 10 more times to your team, right? Repetition. Um, Good. So let's talk a little bit about, so besides social proof, what other elements did you say is key for the conversion rate optimization process?
Yeah, I want to say one more thing about it, just because I know that there's some treatment centers who are listening to this and they've already in their mind said, but you don't understand my center. I have a very select high group of clientele. I can't, like, they're not comfortable with being able to come on camera
Um,
or,
yeah,
um, or things like that. And I want to give them like an option because I think
yeah,
that this will be helpful for them.
please.
One is most people, when you position it as like, hey, if you want to help more people, like if this was helpful for you, you want to help more people, they're cool with sharing their story. You're
Yeah,
just not comfortable with asking, right?
yeah,
Two, if
yeah.
you want to protect the identity of the people who you're doing this with, don't do their last name, just do their first name, right?
Mm,
Which is probably why a lot of people just include like these random quotes without pictures or videos
yeah,
because we want to be able to do that. But an
yeah.
option for you to be able to do that is to say, hey, I hear you. Will you write down your story and answer those 7 questions, the same 7 questions? Just write it. We
Mm,
won't use your name. We will not even use your voice. We will either have somebody who will read it like
mm,
in your voice, and then we'll do B roll. So B roll is just we have pictures and videos of other people at a center
mm,
doing stuff. We can get actors for this. Backstage casting is a way that I traditionally did this across different states. You can
mm,
hire an actor for $100 for the day and have them doing different things that they would normally do in therapy or group therapy. We do it
mm,
in one day. We shoot all the content, and you have that voiceover um, going on over this B-roll. So you get the story without having to expose their name. You can do a pseudonym, and they're able to say things that you couldn't write. For example,
Yeah.
a marketer can never write, I thought that this was going to be lame, but it ended up being something that changed my life. A marketer's not going to say that, right?
That's right.
Well, a marketer's not going to be able to write, I was really skeptical of how nice the people were when I first met them. But after a year, they're just as nice the first day as they were, or the last day as they were the first day I met them. That's not something the marketer could write. But when you
No.
get the words of the person, that VOC, that voice of customer
Mm.
data, you're able to be able to you're able to create some great content. So that's a
Mm.
way you can do that without having to
Yeah.
use any humans on camera that are your actual clients. So just
Yeah.
wanted to give that one piece thing. And that
Yeah.
same thing when it comes to, I talked about getting B-roll.
Mm.
When I would open up a new center, and we went to a new location, we would shoot B-roll for these kinds of videos, and we would do pictures for the facility of the same day,
Mm.
because you want the pictures of your location to have humans in it. You do
Yeah.
not want it to look like a real estate photography shoot, right? With a bunch of empty chairs in an office park. You want it
Or
to
stock
you-
photos.
yeah,
All of that.
nobody wants that. We can tell, y'all. So you can do both of those at the same day. So you get B-roll for these kinds of videos, and you get pictures for your facility, and you do it in one day, and it works for years and years to come. So
Yeah.
just wanted to like give that one last thing
Got it.
about video and Pathos.
That's on point. And correct me if I'm wrong. Uh, do you not have an option? I believe at Recur.com as for a facility who can then turn that into, or
Oh
is that
man,
an old initiative?
I'm so happy you said this because I almost completely forgot. Listen, let me tell you this. If you're an advertiser of recovery.com, this is like I wish I knew this when I was
Right?
the client of
I was like, I
recovery.com.
gotta broadcast this to the world.
If you are an advertiser of recovery.com and you want us to professionally film and edit and distribute and promote your alumni's testimonial, we'll do it. All you got to do is get them there, right? We'll bring them to our studio, we'll record it, we'll promote it on our website, or we'll promote it on our social media. We'll promote it on all of this stuff, give your center that recognition, and we'll give you all the video assets completely professionally done in our studio. You pay nothing. It's great for the treatment center because you have this high quality asset. It's great for the
Mm.
person if they get a chance to be able to share their story. It's
Mm.
great for us because we get to reduce stigma and help more people feel encouraged to be able to seek treatment. And there's no excuse, right? It's completely done for you. We'll handle the logistics and all of that stuff. So if you're an advertiser, that's a completely free service that we give to folks.
I want to make sure everybody understands that a completely free, professionally optimized, and the whole editing, facilitation, and promoting your customer success stories. That's something that would normally cost thousands of dollars with external consultants, and then done with experience in mind and the framework that already works. It's just that's a no-brainer ROI. I would highly encourage everybody to do that. And I think the key word is what you said before that, just to underline it. You gotta ask.
Gonna
You
ask.
have to ask, right? The biggest barrier when I'm typically now on quarterly business reviews with the clients, I'm like, we don't have a lot of leads or not a lot of reviews. And I'm like, did we ask? Yeah, no, we always like, when did we ask? Can I see it? What is the script? And when you start unpacking and you're asking the follow-up questions for the script, for example, is how you ask for it, it turns out they didn't ask, right? So again, there's no shame in that. It's normal. We're busy. You're running a facility, and God knows it's difficult. It's challenging industry with so many applications. So it's understandable. But simply just asking, some people will want to come because most folks that have been in recovery, what they feel most passionate about is how do I pass this on to somebody else? How can I avoid that pain, that struggle, that suffering that I just underwent? How to make sure somebody else doesn't experience that, at a rate of which is why, 12 steps AA programs exist, and the success they've had is because there's always a sponsor and a mentor. So people want to pass it on. People want to teach others. And then Two of our clients actually, well, one of them work with, I would say, if not at least top 10 most exclusive facilities, overseas, luxury, boutique facilities, one-on-one treatment kind of level. We're talking about a price tag, just for the listeners, 150,000 plus a month, cash paid, right? And I've seen, and we have gotten them to show up and do testimonies. So don't underestimate the fact that if you ask, people will want to tell the story. At least 1 out of 5 or 1 out of 10 will say yes to it. And that's all you need. A few testimonials, a few customer advocates that could explain what the little details, to your point, on what the market is never going to be able to put on down on paper.
Yeah, shameless plug for alumni programs too. If your treatment center doesn't have an alumni program, you're also missing out. Alumni programs were really helpful because they help build rapport and relationships and invest in people once they're done paying for stuff from your center. So they're more likely to trust you because you continue to build goodwill through events and monthly and weekly meetings and crisis support. And then those people are much more likely to be able to, where you ask them to be able to do that. One more thing about review generation, I'll give a shout out to a previous colleague of mine, Daniel Lopez. He's like a local SEO specialist. One of the things that he did at the treatment center was that for every successfully discharged client, so they did an AMA or ACA, he called them post-treatment and he asked them first a screening question. Hey, I just wanted to call and see, like, how was your treatment experience at our center? And if it's negative, he records the feedback and he shares it with the team. That's great. It helps us. And if it's positive, he says, oh my God, that's so helpful. Hey, if you really want to help more people understand the need to get treatment, it would mean more from us if you leave a review. And that was a big part of his job that he did every single day. And so it's not about being able to not, people are like, oh, you don't understand our industry. We have so many people who leave negative reviews. You're going to have negative reviews. You're working with people on some of the worst days of their life. The question is, do you have a review velocity that outpaces the negative reviews?
Yes, sir.
You're of course going to get. So that's just one more thing on that.
Yeah. No, I love that. We, I think you said it's looking at it and thinking about, you want to get these reviews, you got to ask. A key element that we consider to elevate and part of all services is review generation. It's that very stuff that your colleague did is so important, right? It's soliciting, and the negative feedback, you tackle it head on, but also you broadcasting it. And then what review gets, the GBP gets on recovery.com and gets distributed on all the other directories, has a multiplier effect that's tremendous. When is the right time to ask for that review? Like an elevate, maybe not to, I'm very much under the notion, like, we have this, what I call a white label patient discharge plan. And we ask, like, in the moment of the honeymoon effect, the people are discharging, we train that admissions team on give it at that moment. And thank you, get in touch. Here's the Alumni app, you scan here. Here's if you have a friend or colleague that needs it. By the way, would you mind just leaving that review and they could scan? And that's a good part. But I also heard facilities like, they ask for it even early in the stage, right? After a group meeting, etc. And very often then agencies follow up after their discharge, which I'm not a huge fan of. It's like, but where do you think is the best place in that journey?
Yeah, very clear protocol. If it's a Google review, then it's immediately after discharge. That's fair. You completed the service. They can give an honest assessment of that. For an alumni testimonial video, 1 year of recovery later.
1 year recovery.
I think it's irresponsible to have somebody share their story after being sober for 1 month when they're still in early recovery. Right? So that's another reason why you need to have an alumni program to be able to stay engaged with them.
Yes. Amen. Good. Well, let's talk a little bit more about the other aspects. You have the 16 ingredients to put on the landing page. A lot of it is like, what's important? What should you put above the fold? What are those, credential certifications? Or how would you navigate? How would you determine, like, what's important to put on these pages and where should we put them?
Yeah. So every time you have a call to action, so either call or verify insurance, you want to pair that with a form of social proof. And we've only talked about Pathos, which is the emotional appeal. So I'm just going to fly through some of these other things. because we talk there's like a 2 hour long conversation where I go through each of these in details. You can link that for folks. But so
Okay.
pathos is that emotional appeal. Ethos is that credibility appeal. Think about badges of places that have verified you are a great place. So CARF, Joint Commission, recovery.com is a great
Mm.
badge. Legit script, all of these different things to be able to put for quick visual credibility. You're going to put that in the hero. So when somebody immediately lands, they can see
Mm.
that. The other one is Google 5-star rating. That's an
Okay.
irresistibility. You want to put that right at the top so they can see your 5-star, 4.6-star review center, and you're verified by all these places. That's your
Mm.
ethos credibility. Yeah, that's a great example from Red Rock Recovery. I love Red Rock Recovery. They're awesome folks. Um, Yes. The next thing you're going to think about is a logos credibility, which is your
Mhm.
facts, figures, numbers, statistics, and data. The best way you can do this is through some form of outcomes. You can do this through your therapeutic alliance. You can do this through your PHQ-9 or your GAD-7 to measure depression and anxiety. It's best done when it's somebody who's in treatment. The basic way you want to do this is to show the bad stuff goes down and the good stuff goes up. And so their relationship with their therapist and helping them succeed goes up. Their depression and anxiety goes down.
Mm.
So you need some sort of EMR or EHR to be able to do that. And alumni post
You recently did a partnership, from my understanding, right? On the
yeah,
integrations
we
with
partnered with ERP to be able to support on
Yeah.
this. They're world class when it comes to tracking outcomes and really
Mm.
understanding this kind of thing. So they're a
Mm.
great resource for that, and it can help you
Mm.
set that up within your own stuff. And it's
Mm.
also another way, like you can publish an outcomes report every year so that you can show people, hey, here's how we're improving. Here's how we're
Mm.
helping more people.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Insurance is the other one. I'm
Yeah.
seeing this on the screen here. And
Yeah.
insurance is, yeah. So that's another form. If you actually accept that insurance, put that on there because people want to see it. And don't mute the colors. Don't make it black and white. The colors are part of the point. You want to be able to make sure that they
Stand out.
stamp and they
Yeah.
people
Yeah.
understand what you treat.
Yeah. Yeah. Very good. I think somebody very smart gave a lot of inspiration for this landing page.
Yeah, I was like, it seemed familiar. I'll be in Daniel over there, so I know that they're good folks. I've connected with them at Red Rock. I
Yeah.
really appreciate them.
Yeah, yeah. Evidence-based treatment. I was just looking through this too as well on the screen. So, I mean, appreciate the breakdown. Obviously, a lot of things. I almost wish there was checklist to make sure that you cover all those things.
Yeah, there is. There's a 16-point checklist, 16 things you need to include on your location page. I know that you're awesome about being able to help people get that up faster. So if you want
Mm.
better results faster, I personally worked with you to be able to create like a landing page design so that somebody doesn't have to wait for a developer and a designer to be able to do it. But you look at that checklist, reach out about that one page landing page. It's super helpful for folks. The price is stupid. It's like it's such a no-brainer. It pays for itself after one admission, so it
Right.
makes a ton of sense to be able to do it. I wish I had that when I first started working in treatment. It would have saved me a lot of time and effort.
Yeah. Yeah, no, thanks for that. And thanks for providing so much instructions and guidance on how we optimize, whether it's location page, homepage, or a paid media landing page is so important for the overall return and expansion, just giving more people access to care. So I know, I mean, we chatted for a while. I think we got to have a round 2 and a round 3 and maybe even a round 4. There's a lot I would want to ask you about. Maybe just to wrap it up for today, you've been in on both sides of the table. You've been working at facility, you are working at recovery, you head of content, you build websites, landing pages, you understand paid SEO. Like when you unpack all of these things and want to start with the end goal in mind, I always like to ask the question, if you're talking to a facility owner right now and there's just a cost that they have the MVP, they dial things in now, they have a 16 bed and it's working, they have a 85, 90% census stability, and they're ready to make that next move and say, okay, we want to expand and get the second property, the third property, we go from 20 to 60 beds. What's the number one advice you would give them to make sure that that expansion plan becomes a reality and successful?
It's a great question because I've seen it work and I've seen it miserably fail. And the key thing is that you want to have a combination of having the right amount of search traffic with demographic fit. So here's where people get it wrong. It's an A plus B type of equation. If you have one and not the other, it won't work.
Mm,
And there's tools that you can use to be able to understand demographic fit. Badger is one of them. You can see the top insurances within a given geolocation. You
yeah.
can see the average income for a space. You can view competitor facilities in this. You can do a lot of things with that. So that's like for the demographic fit. I know the former chief real estate officer at Chick-fil-A, and he said something that always struck me as interesting. He's like, we always build a Chick-fil-A where there's a Chipotle. And it's because we have a similar clientele, right? And
Mhm.
so like there's like a fit with that. And so
Mm,
demographic fit is the first thing, but
mm,
demographic fit is not enough. You also need to have a search fit, right? So that if you do show up from the first page of Google, the first spot in the first Google map pack spot, that you actually have people who are going to find it. I've seen centers who have had the demographic fit, but there weren't enough people searching and they
right.
built it anyways and they had to close down and it sucks. And
It
I've
sucks.
seen people who have a ton of search traffic, but they didn't have a great demographic fit. And then it's also not great. So you need a combination of those two things. I
Mm.
created, if
And
anybody,
even just to add to that,
yeah,
considering the levels of care in that equation, like mission critical, right?
yeah,
As
that's
for
what the demographic that I'd say.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
like, it's considering the context of the location.
Mm,
When we were doing rapid expansions, I created like a checklist that I'm happy to share with anybody if you're considering expanding out to a new territory. Here's the things you need to do, and you can have a score, right? You can score a location
mm.
on that. So it's really helpful for those kinds of people. And we did it because we were doing it so much, and we had seen when it worked and when it didn't work. And so I'd love to save people the time and energy, not have to do it all on their own.
That sounds like an amazing offer, and I'm definitely going to follow up on that. I'm so curious.
Yeah.
Fantastic, fantastic. No, this is just so much to unpack. We're going to make sure we're going to make a lot of reels, a lot of takeaways, and make sure we add links to all the resources that you provide us with. Clint, it's just amazing to work with you. I gotta say, I want to thank you for the great work you're doing in the industry. You're making an impact. I know many of the partners that work with you, and the insights you're giving is always a little bit ahead of the curve. So I would say everybody listening, take advantage of that. Those testimonial resources, how to research on the market, and how to make your marketing spend more effective, and overall expand the impact you set out to put in the world. These little elements is just like the make it or break it, and taking it from 20 bets being profitable to the expansion using some of those techniques. So Clint, thank you so much again for participating today and sharing your wealth of knowledge. Really appreciate it, and looking forward to chat with you soon. If
Yeah.
people want to get in contact with you, what's the best way to do that?
Yeah, you can reach me at clint@recovery.com, or you can message me on LinkedIn. And what I'll do for any of your listeners or watchers, I didn't plan on doing this, but I'll do it for you guys. If you reach out to me from this podcast, and even if you are not an advertiser of recovery.com, I'll set up a space for you to do your alumni testimonials completely free.
Whoa.
You pay nothing. You don't need to be an advertiser. You don't have to be connected with recovery.com at all. But if you want to share your alumni stories and you want it to be done free in a professional environment with the types of content we'll do, and you mention this podcast just for you guys, we'll do that completely free.
Holy.
And yeah,
Excuse my French, but that please. Oh, that's amazing. Thank you so much, Clint. And take advantage. That's the thousands of dollars of production and distribution and just the proven framework to take advantage of. So, is there any limitations on that offer?
no limit.
I think we have 260 people attending or registered here. So get ready.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, depending on what happens, what I might, I eat my words but I'll make good on it. I will say, from this conversation, this is a 4-part framework. We barely got through the second part, so there's like 3 and 4 that still haven't been addressed. But I'm happy to discuss later. If you want to know more about it, reach out to me. I'm very active, and I'd love to be able to help figure out, working with Gary, ways that we can help get more people into your center to get care.
Fantastic. Well, I think you have it there. We have to do a round two then, Clint. It's goes without saying we got to cover those last two topics. I think they're too much to leave on the table there. So let's get that coordinated. And thanks again. Thanks for all the great work you're doing and the office today insights.
Awesome. Appreciate it. Thank you, Gary.
Likewise. Thanks again for dialed in and listen to another episode of the Elevate podcast. If you want to support our message, our mission, please subscribe to the channel. I'll see you in the next episode.
Behind every metric is a life. Let's help more people get the care they deserve. Scan the QR code.